What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're taking a look at Final Fantasy XVI, finally here on the Lenovo Legion Go. It's been quite a journey for me to get this game to run on the Legion Go. It's made me break my original promise to always just test this on the drivers provided by Lenovo without side loading. But to make this game work, I finally had to break down for the first time since launch and side load drivers, and we'll get into that. But first, I do want to go over some other things here with the game. The settings, we have FSR 3, XeSS 1.3 in here, and FSR 1. I'm going to mostly be using FSR 3 here because I need that for frame gen as well, but it's actually working better for me usually than XeSS in this game, which is odd because XeSS has been doing really good, especially 1.3. We're also going to be on low settings across the board for now. The game's very hard to run. It's not very well optimized, to be honest with you. I'm having a lot of trouble with it on a lot of different systems and not just the handhelds. We are going to be 800p here, so you do get the borders around the top and bottom of your screen. If you go 720p, those will disappear, but the aspect ratio is not quite right for me. I'm going to stick with the 800p here for the video. Now, if we take a quick look at FSR 3 quality versus XeSS quality here, like I said before in the past, and I'll go through these, XeSS used to just look better. Cyberpunk and other games, it would be a little clearer. In motion, I think it still is, but sitting still, there's an obvious advantage to FSR 3 when it comes to the upscaling and clarity here as I go through quality, bounce, and now performance. And as far as frame rate, they're very, very similar, though XeSS does tend to be a little bit more stable from time to time, but FSR 3 and frame gen in this game, I think, are really the way to go, at least for now. So we'll go back to that low FSR 3 bounce. 20 watts here is what I'm going to be sticking with for now. You can play around with that a little bit, and we also have in-game frame gen that we'll be taking a look at here, which I think works really well for this game, similar to Black Myth Wukong. Now, on the older original drivers, which are April dated drivers from Lenovo, it'll say it's unable to start the game, but that's not true. We can click OK and actually get into the game, but it crashed on me over 25 times trying to test the game over the past couple of days and make the video just over and over and over again, no matter what I would do with settings, every trick I know in the book. The only thing I could do was finally break down and side load the drivers from AMD. These are dated September 2nd, and it works really well for the game. No more crashing. I don't have a guide yet for this, but I will have one up soon. There's lots of great guides on YouTube already to side load onto your Go if you want to get into that, and I will try to get one up here soon. But it's the only way I can make the game run. So with the side loaded drivers here and everything else low, FSR 3 balance, performance is stable enough to where no more crashes. And luckily, going in and out of most of the cutscenes I've gotten into in the first 7-8 hours I've put into the game here on the handhelds, it's working pretty well here on the Go now with the side load driver. Before, they were about 18 FPS and all over the place. Now they're fairly stable, not perfect, but better. And when it comes to the combat, even in the beginning demo area where we know performance now that the game is out was better than a lot of the rest of the game, which you'll see, no more crashing here. I was crashing here, having a lot of trouble. No major stutters. Frame times aren't perfect. Again, this game is just, it's not the best port that I've seen. It's not the cleanest thing, but it is no longer crashing and giving me problems here, and I am able to usually play between 30 and 50 FPS when I'm not using frame gen, though you will see some dips down into the 20s from time to time when it gets really busy. Again, this is a side-loaded driver. There could be some things there with that. The Ally doesn't quite dip that low here in some of these areas, but darn close, though. And in some other harder-to-run areas like this spot, it just seems to run in the 20s on all the handhelds. The Steam Deck runs it at about 16 to 19 FPS. The Ally is very similar to the Go here. And yeah, this spot just tends to run that way no matter what you do. As far as a lot of the battles or the boss fights and things I get into, a lot of that's kind of one-on-one, and frame rate and frame times are okay. It feels fine. I don't have any trouble playing the game on the Go this way either, but I do think it feels better with frame gen, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But at least I was able to play finally with the side load drivers. Again, I crashed at every single one of these scenes and more trying to test on the official driver, which again is dated back to April, which is just not great. Again, out here in the field here, we get about 20s and 30s, but at least it was stable enough to play. This game just, it's not easy to run, but in my opinion, the way it looks compared to some other games out right now, it really should be performing better than this on all the devices, not just the Legion Go. Now, if we turn on frame gen, which is really good actually, it's pretty good in this game. Again, the game needs some work, but This area where we were getting 28 to 35 FPS a few moments ago, we will more stay in the 50s and 60s here pretty good. Frame times are pretty stable. Again, no crashing, and it's just a much better experience with the side-loaded driver versus what we had before without it, with just constant crashing. I could never play for more than a few minutes. This fight that we were getting around 40 FPS or so, it would run differently, is 70, 80, and it would dip here and there and feels really smooth. The additional input latency you get from the in-game frame gen for this game's really not bothering me. As many complaints as I have about this port right now and trying to run it, frame gen's not necessarily one of them. I actually think they have a pretty good implementation here that might be worth using on the handhelds. And this area outside in that field where we were about 28 to 34 FPS a few moments ago, we're holding up in there 40, 50s here. And even though that's a low base FPS, the frame gen's actually handling it pretty well, and the input latency doesn't feel too bad. I don't think I would have too much trouble here, but that's going to be up to you guys if you want to run that or not. But with the way this game's running, with the way frame rates are working, you might want to think about using frame gen and taking advantage of that, but just see how it's working for you. Let me know if you guys are playing this game on the official Lenovo drivers, which came out in May and are dated for April from AMD, because I just couldn't make that work. These drivers that I side-loaded to make this work finally are the September 2nd dated drivers from AMD, and I'll be running these to test games on the Lenovo Legion Go going forward until Lenovo releases a new GPU driver. Then I will revert back to testing the OEM driver like I want to be doing here, because I don't mind side-loading drivers. It's not a hard process, but your average consumer who's never done it or isn't familiar shouldn't have to go learn how to do that to make their device work properly that they just bought. So I don't think 1 or 2 GPU driver updates a year is gonna cut it. We need much more often on those GPU driver updates to keep these games going, and that's across the board for all the handhelds. Any handhelds that are going to be out there, just like any other PC, these games require more driver updates, and they happen all the time between Intel and Nvidia, and we're gonna have to have them a little bit quicker here, or we're gonna have to do a lot more side loading like this ourselves. All right, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks a lot for coming to check out the video as always. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.